Yeah.
We have callers on the line. I'm going to start taking them. Thank you. That number right up there is 477-2288, locally, area code 512 if you are elsewhere. Our Austin callers are calling in today, though, so but if you're from elsewhere, don't hesitate to drop us a line. And we're going to start with Chuck, I believe it is. You there, Chuck?
Yes.
Hey, thanks for waiting. How are you doing today?
Just fine.
All right.
I just wanted, today I saw a television program on the History Channel, and it was called How the Earth Was Made. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that one?
I haven't, no.
I think it was the latest, it was their latest presentation of over 100 years of discovery about our planet.
Okay.
And it put the age of the Earth at 4.5 billion years. And it was an excellent show. Plenty of accepted scientific fact about the Earth.
You know, that is encouraging to me to hear because I've been worried for so many years that the History Channel has been descending into what I would call the pseudoscience channel. You know, it's the UFOs and the crop circles and
they
can't seem to,
when you're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to have some crap.
And you got to get those ratings in, which means sometimes pandering to the beliefs.
But I want to suggest that everybody see this. If you're interested in that kind of thing, and especially anybody who is considering this intelligent design. Mm-hmm. I think people who haven't considered what is going on with this intelligent design scam, especially parents, they should be aware of what is happening. The way I see it is the church is trying to rewrite history. And I know that all they're saying now is they want their theory to be considered in the public schools.
It would be nice if they had a theory to consider.
But that is just so they can get their foot in the door of the public schools.
Oh, yes.
And any responsible parent should be outraged about this. The church knows it can't change an adult mind, so they're going after our children. Even teachers should be outraged, and especially science teachers. How can a responsible teacher teach science all week long and then go to church on Sunday?
Well, some people do manage it. Kenneth Miller, who is one of the foremost experts on evolution in the world, is Catholic, and he finds a way to reconcile his beliefs with his absolute fidelity to scientific, accuracy and truth when it comes to his expertise on evolution. So, in that regard, fine. But when it comes to, Kenneth Miller would be completely on the same page with you in terms of the religious beliefs, the religious answer, really, for one thing, there's no alternate theory there coming from their side, and what belongs in science class is science. Science class is not Sunday school, it's science class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But see, up until now, the church has not been trying to get into the public schools.
Well, I would disagree with you there.
I would disagree.
I mean, they've always, had their Sundays, but now they want to get in there and start trying to mold the minds of our children.
But that actually has been going on. I mean, remember Murray versus Curley? Madeline Murray O'Hare's big, court case in 1962 was, up until that point, public schools in America had obligatory recited prayer.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was so you really have had this desire to, cross, blur that line between separation of church and state and have that kind of religious instruction just sort of, kind of woven in with the regular schooling just so that it's there and, hopefully it's woven in such a way that you don't really notice. And so I think they're really, it's not a recent battle in terms of this whole thing of the church trying to move into the public schools. It really has been going on a while, and this is just the latest. This is the latest battleground. Okay?
Exactly.
There's been the school.
It's time to stop them again. Anyway, I feel very strongly about that.
I'm glad you do, and I hope you speak out. With the SBOE State Board of Education hearings coming up.
Yeah, and in fact, didn't the State Board of Education didn't they vote on some decision here just a couple of weeks ago?
I think I'll have to find out the exact information of what was done. Yes, here's what they did. They chose their panel of experts to review the science curriculum And 3 of them are, there's 6 names on it, and 3 of them are hardline ID supporters, including one dude who's actually from the Discovery Institute. He's a rep with that organization.
Well, not only that, but one of the guys that they chose on that panel actually contributed to a textbook that may end up being considered as part of this. So there's a huge conflict of interest here.
Yeah.
So,
it's the new creationist textbook, which is replacing of Pandas and People because of the lid got blown off of Pandas and People. Yeah. What a fraud that was. So now they've done they've repackaged that and they put out a new textbook which has the cleverly deceptive title of Exploring Evolution. Yeah. But which is the usual McDonald's menu of creationist canards, and
and what is it? And I mean it's accepted scientific fact that the planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and they said today in that program that they've been examining this and debating this for over 100 years, and it's accepted. And so intelligent design says that God created the universe 6,000 years ago?
See, they don't use the G word because you have to remember the whole purpose of the intelligent design movement as a political movement has been to couch a religious alternative in what is sort of scientific sounding lingo. They want to get around what's called the lemon test, what has, with the decisions that, Supreme Court decisions that have prevented what used to be called creationism and then creation science. And what was it? What was the one that Aguilar? I'm sorry, guys. Somebody in the control room will actually have to come.
Edwards v. Aguilar.
Edwards v. Aguilar.
Yeah.
Is it Aguilar or Aguilard or
Aguilard?
Okay,
but anyway, the long and short of it is
it's only. They're saying that the whole universe is only 6,000 years old. Is that what they're saying?
That's based on one of the young Earth creationists' attempts at dating the Earth based on. I guess they're using genealogies from the Old Testament.
From Genesis and right.
Well, although the intelligent... you said younger, like kindergarten?
Well, no. Young Earth creationists.
Yeah, there are two versions
it sounds like anybody who would come up with that would be in kindergarten.
People have spent an extremely ridiculous amount of time coming up with how old the Earth has to be based on these genealogies.
Because the whole point of the exercise, of course, is to defend religious beliefs from the encroachment of these inconvenient scientific facts that come along and take the wind out of their sails. Actually, most of the intelligent design crowd, however, aren't necessarily young Earthers. They're not of the it's only 6 to 10,000 year old
Right.
camp.
Some of them are old Earth creationists, so they'll accept the 4.5 billion years, but they still think God did it.
And it's interesting this sort of rhetorical legerdemain they do to get there, because then they'll say, the 7 days of the creation. The young Earth creationists say, well, that was a literal 7-day week, which is kind of stupid, because without an Earth going around the sun at the time at the rate that it does, why assume that? Why was there a 7-day week? I mean, what would have been the basis for that? Right?
Yeah.
The Venusian week is different. So
in this program? There was no intelligent design to the formation of the Earth at all. I mean, it's just strictly formed by what just happened to be taking place at the time.
Well, I'm glad
on a massive scale. Anyway, I think that any responsible parent or teacher needs to really get involved here, because this is it's time to slam the door on the church again.
And all right. Definitely.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thank you. And I am so glad that Chuck called with that topic, because that lets me segue into the thing that I was going to talk about that we put off to take our first call. I just sent a rather scathing email to the CFI Austin Yahoo group.
Okay.
Because there was a post on that group today, this mailing list today, talking about how the State Board of Education, which, as a lot of you may know, is run by a guy named Dan McElroy, who is a young Earth creationist, appointed by Rick Perry to run this group, and they have loaded this thing down with just about almost half of the State Board of Education are creationists of the old school, Creation Week and Adam and Eve and all the rest of it. And so there are hearings coming up again. And the public will be invited to speak at these, and you can sign up to speak. And I don't know exactly. I looked at the websites, some of the websites that would have that information up to date. And I don't think the exact. I couldn't find, for example, on the Texas Freedom Network website, if the actual sign-up page, when the date is for these hearings. I don't know that information yet. If I find out that information, I will immediately post something to the Atheist Experience blog about it. But what disappointed me was that the immediate reactions, just the first few people to respond to that post on the CFI list, were of a very defeatist attitude. Mm-hmm. And these were people whom I would not have expected to take that attitude. These are, one's a science teacher, very respectable people, and folks who could, if they really wanted to, give the creationists as good as they get, and mm-hmm. more so, taking the attitude of, why bother? I'm not going to waste my time. They don't listen anyway. It's mm-hmm. pointless. I'm not, I just want to stay home. I'm not going to take time out of my schedule to talk to a bunch of people who are, not even going to listen, and it's not going to do any good, and da-da-da. And I just was like, whoa, mm-hmm. wait a second. All right, I know that this is a frustrating fight. It is frustrating in the 21st century.
Yeah, that we're still having this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, let alone that they're stoning children to death on the other side of the planet. But over here, we're still having to, defend modern ideas and modern science, against 19th century beliefs.
Right.
Before, right? I know that it is frustrating and wearying to have to, get on that horse and ride down that trail again. But the point is, what else can you do? If you're not willing to defend science, you have to defend, facts and the truth and reality against these politically motivated forces who do not want to have science, A, inconveniencing their religious beliefs, and B, they do want the pro-science side to roll over and play dead and just hand them the victory they're looking for.
Right.
And that's the attitude that I was unfortunately seeing today on the mailing list. And I had to send a really, pretty brutal letter back saying, hey, whatever happened to principle here? Can we all look that word up? The point is that is what the creationists would love on the SBOE. All of the pro-science side to just give up and stay home and say, oh, it's all useless. They're all fundies anyway. They're not going to pay attention to us. Mm-hmm. But you know what? The people who are willing to stand up for science, they kept that one Young Earth organization. I think it wasn't Answers in Genesis. It was a different one. But the Institute for Creation Research,
ICR, that's right.
Recently in Texas, wanted to get approved to give out master's degrees.
Yeah.
And
well, they can give out master's degrees, but just not in science.
Right. They wanted to give out master's degrees.
Yeah, you can't be accredited to do that.
Right. They wanted that accreditation, and they didn't get it. And the reason they didn't get it was because people who are real scientists and supporters of real science came out. Guys like Steve Schaefersman, mm-hmm. fantastic fellow with Texas Citizens for Science. You go to texscience.org. Is that organization's website. Great folks. Came out and said, look, this is not a scientific organization. These are pseudoscientists. They have a politically motivated religious point of view they're trying to promote here. They are not fit to do what they want to do. They have no qualifications to do what they want to do. And this is just all political shenanigans.
Right.
And so ICR, got sent home to go file their lawsuits or do whatever they do when they don't get their way, right? Mm-hmm. But the point is, yes, it does work to speak out against this. You can get this idea, the religious right's in charge, nothing's ever going to change. But it does. I spoke at the hearings in 2003. They were trying to get ID sort of shoehorned into the science textbooks in 2003, and I was there to speak there. We had Russell Glasser was there, Don Baker came, ACA was well supported. I think a couple other folks. Let me see if I can remember who from our side turned up. But a good turnout, and then a bunch of the science faculty at the University of Texas turned up, and a whole heap of creationists who had been sort of trucked in by the Discovery Institute.
From Waco or someplace?
No, they brought in William Dembski turned up. Oh, okay. Michael Behe was there. Jonathan Wells, like the sort of the ID triumvirate was there.
Yeah.
And a bunch of DI people were there. And ultimately, the vote was to keep the textbooks, correct.
Yeah.
And even though, of course, Dan McElroy, who was part of that, and his little partner in crime, Terry Leo,
the
woman who is as dumb as a sack of hammers, and and who machinated everything to where all the media was there at the beginning. She got the speakers front loaded with all the creationists.
Right.
Like the first dozen or so speakers. Right.
Yeah, that it's late by the time the
Right, and then all the TV cameras went home, but there were still several hours of testimony going. I think it went until past midnight. I ended up speaking at around 10:30 at night. And I'm like, okay, everyone's tired, and I didn't stay here for 6 or 7 hours all day just to like give my little 3-minute thing and be ignored. So I gave, I gave a really sort of a boisterous little speech there, and it got a good reception. And the point is, you can do it. You can stand up, and it does matter to be noticed. And it really, really disappointed me to see people on the CFI Austin list take this, defeatist attitude of, well, I don't care, and no,
And,
no,
and besides, I mean, you can get up there and talk and make them look stupid. And it's really not that hard, because they are stupid.
Well, yeah.
So,
what I did was I read back actual quotes from guys like Jonathan Wells.
Yeah.
Where, Jonathan Wells in one of his books talks about how, he decided to go for a second PhD because he wanted to devote his life to defeating Darwinism. And this was a result of talks that he had with Father. You know who Father was? No. The Reverend Moon.
Oh.
Jonathan Wells was a Moonie. Okay, just stuff like that. You have William Dembski basically, because remember the whole sales pitch for ID is, no, this isn't religious. This is an alternate scientific theory. And then you can just point to, you can just open up one of Dembski's books and talk about how, where he says any scientific ideas that leave Jesus out have to be considered invalid.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, well, there you go. I mean, you just you undermine them with their own words, and at that point, your work is done.
And they've published the Wedge document, so that's available online. You can read it, and
that got brought up quite a bit. So,
you know what the agenda is here, and it's not science.
So I was very, very glad that Chuck brought that up, because now I keep getting flashed here. This little notice: the Atheist Community of Austin put out a voter's guide where they sent a list of questions to politicians running for office this election cycle, and they got a bunch back, and apparently one of the questions had to do with such scientific issues like the age of the Earth. Am I correct there? Okay, I'm getting a nod. But that's really all I'm being told. So apparently there are politicians out there who have correct scientific attitudes, and others who don't, and quite a few who do not, and then probably some who didn't even answer the questionnaire at all.
Yeah.
So that's fairly handy, and I do believe, I'm just going to wait to see if I get a nod on this, that the results of those voters' guide, the answers have been put on the Atheist, yes they have, Atheist Community of Austin website, the URL of which is splattered across the bottom of your screen.
So if your frontal lobes are functioning, you can use this voter's guide.
I just sort of, we communicated through gestures and nods, and I got it all down.
Yeah, see, there you
go. Do that kind of thing.
But if your frontal lobes are still functioning, you can go to the website, take a look at the results, and use that information to inform your voting decision if you haven't already voted when you go to the polls on Tuesday.